Look, also over onto the Australian now, and a warning on loan cost pain. Josh Frydenberg in the news once again. He will warn that businesses, homeowners and governments could face higher borrowing costs if Australia is locked out of foreign capital markets because of false assumptions that the nation's transition to a low emissions future is moving too slowly. It's a full throttle attack, isn't it, tomorrow? Frydenberg is going all in on, I guess, the future of our economy, and it's kind of good to see.
Well, it is. It has to take the lead on this. But look, there are a few realities here. One, renewable energy. Yes, we would all like to see, a move towards renewable energy. Yes, we all have to do more to protect the environment and look at transitioning to renewable energies. But as I said before, there is still a huge demand for baseload power, and that, unfortunately, that comes from coal and gas. So that's just the facts. We're coming out, when we eventually come out from underneath the dunas and out of this pandemic, we're going to be in a very tough economic position. Like, it's going to be my children and probably my grandchildren who are still paying back the debt that has got us to this point so far. And we haven't seen the worst of it. You go to the Gold Coast, for example, you go down to the Tweed where there's shopfront after shopfront that is closed. Melbourne, it's a ghost town. I talk to friends down there and they don't recognise the city at all, and are actively making moves to pack up their lives and shift to interstate and predominantly to Queensland. So, look, I think we have not seen the start of the economic impact that's going to come from this pandemic. So Frydenberg needs to start heading out there and preparing people for this.
Yeah, I think you're right. He needs to head out there and maybe head to the, suburbia as opposed to, say, the top end of town, just to ensure that mum and dad's out there and making sure that they are going to feel more comfortable when, like you say, we come out from behind the apron of this horrific pandemic. Because, I think there's some stories coming up later in the show which will touch, like you touched on, with shop fronts closed and the long COVID pandemic, which is going to continue long until the physical pandemic is done. Also on the Australian, the PM slams Labor on division on subs. Scott Morrison has welcomed overwhelming bipartisan support in the US for getting nuclear-powered submarines, but he's accused the ALP back home of undermining national security by having a bet each way on the proposal. It kind of sounds like that ScoMo's been watching Paul Murray a bit too much and trying to chime in on the each-way Albo. After meeting Democrat and Republican leaders in Congress, the Prime Minister said that there was great enthusiasm for the project and he had received overwhelming support when it came to Australia moving ahead to establish a new submarine fleet. Look, do you kind of think that it's just a classic political story of, like, the right says left and the left says right, and you kind of have to know that there's going to be an opposition pushback in some regard?
Yeah, I think you're right. And like you, Jenna, when I heard those words come out of the Prime Minister's mouth today, I thought the same thing. It's the old each-way elbow taken to the absolute next level. So Paul Murray should be very, very proud of that one. But look, at the end of the day,
get some merch made.
The press get the hat. The press conference that the Prime Minister held on the day was at 7 o'clock in the morning. Now, it took Albanese until early afternoon to come out and make his statement. So clearly there was a lot of back and forth going on within the Labor Party as to how do we handle this. They have to be bipartisan when it comes to national security. So they had to back the plan, but they did put the sort of boundaries around it as no nuclear domestically here. They have to walk that tightrope with the Greens, and that's a really tough one. And then so Albo's come out in support, but now Paul Keating's been very, very vocal about it. So obviously Penny Wong has now stepped forward into the fray and put her 2 cents worth in. But they can't have it each way, and especially with an election coming up, early next year. They have to make a decision one way or the other, and they can't be laying the groundwork. They surely cannot be so stupid as to lay the groundwork to want to undo that pact, because our security depends on that.
Yeah, and again, I think that's, like, you're so right. I think people just want certainty in these very uncertain times.